Cross-court pass to Trey Smith. Trey from downtown, got it. Wants a screen, he'll go the other way. Find AO. Aaron from downtown, got it. The Moose is loose.
Mid-center court with Charlie Ernst on 88.3 WLFC.
Tommy, left side, little stutter step, driving the lane, scoop the hoop, left hand, got it again. High ball screen, back top of the key, backdoor pass ahead, and slam it home. Alex White, it's his second slam.
Join Coach Ernst and the Oilers on-air team as they take a look back at the week that was, discuss what's happening around the conference, and preview the week ahead.
Oilers win it, and what a game here in Croy, and a tremendous victory for the Orange and Black.
And now, let's join men's basketball head coach Charlie Ernst and the voice of Oiler basketball, Jason Granger.
Hello and welcome to Center Court with Charlie Ernst. I'm Jason Granger, and right now joined by the head coach of the Oilers. And Coach, two games to talk about and two nice victories. Two GLIAC schools came to Croy, Ferris State and Northwood, and you get two nice home wins.
Well, without a doubt. We set out when we left Missouri, told the guys, hey, we have our next three games against GLIAC schools, and we got them all at home. We have a lot of respect for those GLIAC schools. You know that. Not only are they good programs, but they're well coached. They have a lot of pride. All of them have been to Findlay numerous times, so just the thought of coming to Findlay is not going to intimidate them. And I thought our guys, we played well for long stretches in all three of those games. And I think we learned a lot about ourselves. Our confidence is going up. Some of these teams have exposed some different weaknesses that we've addressed in practice. And I think the thing that you get when you play GLIAC schools is, they make you better, because they can expose your weaknesses. And these were three different teams. It'll be interesting when you throw them all together come February to see, where they're all at in terms of the GLIAC. But I think they all bring different things to the table. I'm pretty excited that we were able to do what we did against them.
Well, 5-0, and I know it's just a short part of the season here in November, but you got to be pleased with 5-0, and you also have to be pleased with something you just talked about. In all these games, there were moments where we didn't look so good, and we had to figure some things out really on the fly with a young basketball team, and you got to be proud and happy with how you guys were able to figure that out and still get the win.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with a young team, and we've got a nice combination of, we got two seniors, which obviously that's important because both those guys have played well, and we needed that coming into the year. But regardless of any lineup you have after that, we have a lot of inexperience, and you're a little uncertain how those guys will perform. And I think the other thing is we lost so much of our go-to scorers, guys we leaned on and looked to for all scoring at key moments of the game for the last couple years. And I think what we've seen with this team is that we have multiple guys stepping into that role at different times. And, that's exciting to see. And I think, it's all part of the process. But I like what I've seen from this team as well as we've played. I don't think we're anywhere near where we need to be and where we will be. So I'm excited about that part.
We'll talk a little bit about the Ferris State game here, and that was I think a matchup that the fans really were looking forward to coming in the season. I imagine that, of course, the players were too, but Ferris State, who knocked us off twice the year before and won the national title, and coming back here into Croy, and it was a high energy type environment in Croy, and it was good to really beat Ferris at a lot of things that they were good at last year, getting to the foul line, beating them inside, doing it with defensive presence in the paint, and we showed a lot of good things in that game and got a nice victory.
We did, and they're a lot like us in some ways. While they lost a lot of good players, they return a lot of good players and some guys that are taking a much more aggressive approach. Obviously, the thrower kid had a tremendous game against us. He seems to play his best basketball when Findlay rolls into town. And then, of course, they have the Hughes kid and the Williams, Mayfield. I mean, they've got a lot of guys. They're more of a guard-oriented team. But I think the key in that game was that they are a team that relies on their press. They like to force tempo. They like to force turnovers. They kind of like the game to be played on their terms. And the fact that they couldn't press us, or maybe I should say they couldn't press Tommy, and not only did we beat the press, but then we converted at the back end of that press, which they got out of that. And then they went zone. And, of course, the zone is something they can play, and it worked for a while, but I thought we got comfortable against it. And I've always said, if they go zone, their best zone lineup is not their best offensive lineup. And because they went zone, they weren't able to kind of sub freely the way that they like to sub. And I think that, that was really key. But I think more than anything, I think the fact that we knocked down shots, we were unselfish. I don't know that we took a bad shot the whole night. That says a lot. I think 24 assists to 12 turnovers against them is a great number, and so is a 34 to 29 rebounding advantage, and including they got 7 offensive rebounds, which is a fair amount. But this is a team that sends 4 guys to the glass, 4 athletes in size to the glass. So we knew if we cleared, defensive rebounds, we could get some stuff in transition, and we did. So 7 offensive rebounds seems like quite a few, but not compared to what they had been getting coming into that game.
Yeah, he attacked their pressure and forced them into some foul trouble as well, and went to the line 29 times, made 24 of them. That was a theme for really all these games in the GLIAC that we played here in the preseason, is getting to the line and then making our foul shots.
Well, we keep a couple stats during games, and one of them we call our hustle board, and it's deflections, it's charges, it's block shots, it's all of those things you would expect, loose balls with hustle. But the other piece of that board and that stat for us is we want to make more free throws than our opponent attempts. So in addition to the hustle, we don't want to foul. Okay, and we want to get to the line because that shows that you have a commitment of hustling and not settling for just taking threes when you get fatigued. And I think that's the one thing we've done here the last 2 games that I didn't think we did a great job of in our first couple games is, we fouled too much. If you go back to the Quincy game, we fouled too much, and we didn't get to the line enough. The tables have turned a little bit, and I think our guys really turned that around in the Ferris State game. We made 24 free throws. They attempted 20. So we won that stat +4. Anytime you can win that stat, you have a great shot at winning.
I think coming into this season, you knew what you had with your starting lineup. I'm not sure you knew what you had with the guys coming off the bench. Maybe you did, but I have just been more and more impressed every time these guys come off the bench for you, and I hope that continues through the year. I think it's got to, but guys like Ethan Linder, Chaz George, Devin Stover, Cat, Brady when he's healthy, these guys have come off the bench and have brought great things, and they all do it in their own little way.
Yeah, I saw signs of that. Wasn't sure where it was going to come from, but that's why you practice in the preseason. A couple guys started to break away from the pack, and that's what you want to see. You want players not to inherit playing time because of another guy's demise. You want guys to get playing time, earn it because of their performance consistently in practice. And I think Chaz is a great example of that. We weren't sure he was kind of in a position with Anthony, with Katwan, with Matt, with Devin, with Dondre. We have a lot of guys that could play in that role. But I felt like from the first day of practice, and even before the first day of practice, Chaz started showing signs that he was going to do what it took to get that role. And I'm not sure I believed it until about the second week of practice, and I started seeing signs, and then he started to break away, and now he's just breaking away and creating a bigger gap. And so so now you ask me that question, if that surprises me. Maybe it surprises me from way back in May or June, but not from what I've seen. I'm starting to raise my expectation level of what he can become.
You get your 4th win against Ferris State. Now bring in Northwood, and looking at Northwood as an outsider, I've been impressed with them. They played a tough schedule coming in to play us. They played Bellarmine, number 1 team in the nation. Indy is no slouch. They're ranked as well and one of the top teams in the region, and they played right with those teams. And we're missing some guys as well during those games. They came into town. I thought we set the tone early, especially inside with Alex. And 7 of 19 isn't a great number. I'm sure he missed a couple chippies. One of those times he's going to shoot a great percentage and have like 30, but 24 points, 14 rebounds. He was an absolute force to the point that Northwood got absolutely frustrated with him underneath and picked up a technical foul. He was a force in the paint.
Yeah, he's really come into his own, and it's great to see. He had a really good summer, and I think that's really parlayed right into the momentum that he's opened up this season with. We have said and preached to our players that we need to be an inside-out team, that we're going to have a matchup advantage with either Alex or Aaron. And I think that their preparation all week long and through the summer has put them both in position where not only do they get the ball, but they're physical, they want the ball, they're posting up deep. And I think in Alex's case, I think the biggest improvement I've seen from him is the physicality that he's playing with. He's always had that right-handed jump hook. He's always had an ability to step out and make a three from time to time. But what I see is a guy that's creating contact. He's taken the ball to the rack with authority. Got to the line 11 times. And that's a sign that you've got some bigs in there that are horses, that are making teams have to adjust. And it's always interesting to see, how do teams want to adjust against us? Do they want to send a second guy? Because both, Alex is an excellent passer. So that can be, that can work against you. So he's just doing a lot of things well. And not to mention, he's truly one of the top defensive big men in the conference. So here's a guy that's getting it done on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, Tommy Schmock had a challenge in this game. Jacavian Lewis came in as an outstanding point guard, and I believe he is a great point guard. Is going to have a great year up in the GLIAC for Northwood. But I felt like Tommy came in with a chip on his shoulder. He had something to prove in this game. And 19 points, 6 assists. He only had 1 turnover, and he dominated that matchup. Well,
it kind of makes me chuckle because Tommy comes into every game with a chip on his shoulder, and that's what makes him a great player. He never looks past people. He's got one way of playing. He's extremely competitive. If anything, sometimes we have to tone that down a little bit. But he's a joy to coach. He was a handful for them. They made the decision not to leave people. And he made them pay early in the game because he just got all the way to the rim and made his little left-handed scoops. And then in the second half, I thought they sold out a little bit more, and he came to great under-control stride stops at the end of his drives. And then he was finding shooters, and we were knocking them down. When you got that many things to contend with, you're trying to decide, how do we want to defend their bigs inside? That's number one. And number two, what are our matchups going? How do we want to defend ball screens? How are we going to keep Schmock out of the lane? Those are all things that come into play. We got to continue to find ways to get those guys playing to their strengths. But I thought last night was one of his very best games of his career.
Certainly was, and we'll talk more about this matchup when we return on Center Court.
Chances are there'll never be an emergency ever again. But just in case, let's talk about a plan.
Okay.
Who is going to grab the go bag?
What's a go bag? It is a bag we do not have that is filled with things we really, really need in an emergency.
Guess we won't have to worry about it then.
Well, this is great. I am so glad that we don't have a plan.
I know.
Winging it is not an emergency plan. Make sure your kids know what to do during an emergency, who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey everyone, let's all stop what we're doing and take a moment. You see? Every moment can be kind of special. But they could be loud moments, goofy moments, dorky moments, it doesn't matter. Because every time dads like us take a moment like that to spend with our kids, well, it's pretty momentous. So let's take a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Cross-court pass to Trey Smith. Trey from downtown, got it.
Thursday night, your Oiler basketball teams open GMAC play, traveling to Tiffin to battle the Dragons.
Fricky line to lane, throw it up with the right hand, bucket's good. Dana Fricky.
Jason Granger will have all the action from the Gilmore Student Center. Women's pregame at 5:10, tip-off at 5:30, men's game immediately following.
Aaron from downtown, got it. The Moose is loose.
This is your home for Oiler basketball, 88.3 WLFC.
Welcome back to Center Court. Right now talking about that Northwood game before we preview the upcoming matchups between Tiffin and Cedarville. And Coach, you had a 11-point lead at the half, and our leading scorer, Aaron Overheiser, has a goose egg. And I think that shows the type of team that we have, that you can get scoring from a number of different places. Now, to Aaron's credit, he comes back, gets 12 in the second half. But this is a team that's very balanced on the offensive end.
Well, I think the thing about our team is that we have to continue to be sure that we don't get silly fouls, especially at our bigs. Not that we don't have depth, but I think Alex and Aaron are such a force that when they're saddled with foul trouble, that does affect us. Fortunately, while Aaron was saddled with some foul trouble, Alex was not, and we were able to go with the combination of Ketwan and Devin there later in the first half. But Aaron's such a weapon. We have to have him on the floor. I truly believe he's one of the best shooters in the region. This is not some kind of surprise, and I think our fans are starting to realize Aaron's just a really good shooter. So the fact that we had an 11-point lead going to the break, I don't know how many minutes he played in the first half, but it couldn't have been much more than 5 or 6 minutes. And in the second half, we got him freed up a couple times. He got posted up. He got to working on the block. He got fouled a few times. He's just a hungry player right now, and he's playing with a lot of confidence. I know he was frustrated that he was sitting on the bench in the first half, but I think that's where depth plays a big part in things. You got to be able to operate at a high level regardless of the players you have at your expense, and I think that was a sign, and I think a good sign, because it's going to happen throughout the year with different positions. And so he kind of got lost, I think, by them in the second half. And of course, he's too good to get lost. He missed a three. I remember one occasion he missed a three. We got the offensive rebound, threw it right back to him, and without hesitation, he let a second one fly, and he made the second one. He might miss the first one, but if he gets 2 open looks in a row, he's not going to miss many.
Yeah, 12 points, 4 rebounds. And let's talk a little bit defensively. And, the Northwood scored 72 points. A lot of those came really in the last couple minutes. I thought maybe we lost maybe just a little bit of our focus down the stretch, which is understandable with the amount of young guys that we have out there. But I think for the most part, you got to be pleased with where the team is at in November defensively, as far as identifying shooters, identifying drivers, and being attuned to the game plan.
I thought we defended them well. We put in a new ball screen defensive rotation on Saturday and Sunday in preparation for Northwood. Their ball screens really hurt us a year ago, so we adjusted, put in a new way of defending ball screens, and we went with that last night. And it gave them some problems, made them a little bit uncomfortable. Now that being said, they weren't prepared for it. So it worked well, and I thought our guys adjusted well. But I told the team this after the game. The better we play, the higher my expectations go for what we can become. And our guys know that regardless of the score, regardless of who's on the floor, I expect a high level of intensity. And I thought that you're right. We let up for about a minute. And they breathed, kind of got some life there late. Now, I'm not sure the game was ever in jeopardy. I don't But that's not the point. The point is, when you don't want to develop bad habits where you pick and choose, when you want to compete at a high level. And we got a little bit lazy, literally for like 2 possessions. But that's all it takes in basketball. And they make a couple shots and confidence changes. So those are things that we will focus on in practice, that you can get away with that in Croy at our home floor when you're up 20. But when you go on the road and you're up 12, you have to put 40 minutes together. You can't come out of a timeout and not play with the same sense of urgency you did before that timeout. I thought that's one of the things that we did and that we'll learn from after that Northwood game.
Well, it ends up being an 85-72 victory, and Oilers now 5-0, and then turn to league play. And it's a new league for the GMAC this year, and you look at all the teams across the board, and I think you're a little surprised by a couple teams. Ohio Valley's up there at 3-0, but we remember them having some players. But as we start this league, what teams? Before we get into this week, what teams stick out to you in the GMAC this early in November?
Well, I think Ohio Dominican's going to be good, and I think Hillsdale is going to be good. Hillsdale just played without their big kid against Saginaw Valley, and that's a big loss for them because they throw him the ball a lot. It's kind of like what we do with Alex, So you take that guy out of the middle, that affects them, and I think they're a little beat up right now. Whether those are season-ending injuries, I have no idea. But I think that they'll be there when it's all said and done. And we know that Lake Erie and Walsh both have talented players. I anticipate both of those teams will have a lot to say. Probably the team that, and Ohio Valley's up there right now. I'm not sure who they've played so far. I think we'll learn a lot more here between now and Christmas. But I would say the team that I think is a bit of a surprise and has played pretty well, their record maybe isn't reflective of it, is Alderson Broadus. They have played without one of their best players early in the year, and I think they start 3 freshmen. And they have played some pretty good teams right down to the wire with a really young lineup. And that tells me that, A, that's a team that's going to get a lot better, and B, when they get, and I can't remember the kid's name, their starting 4-man, he's out, I guess, for another week or 2, it sounds like. But when they get him back, they probably have a chance to make a big jump here in the conference standing. So, it's hard to say for sure where everything's going to fall out. But I think there's a lot of teams. It all depends, and health is important. There's injuries. Everyone's got a few. I think that's got to be a key for our team. We got to figure out a way to get better, challenge our guys in practice, but be fresh for games, because when you're fresh for games, there's a better chance that you can avoid the injury bug.
Well, we start out at Tiffin and at Cedarville Thursday and Saturday, a 7:30 start or thereabouts over in the Dragon's Lair, and it's never easy to play over there. It's a very small gym. Tiffin always plays their best games against Findlay, and you look back over the past years, we've rose to the challenge as well. It's always been a great game over there in Tiffin, and I expect the same thing on Thursday.
We have, and I think I give our players credit for that, because we, now not here recently, but I don't know, 6-7 years ago, maybe even beyond that. I remember one year they were 1-25. We were like 24-5. It was before I was the head coach, but the point being, they raise their level of play, and I think their fans look forward to that game. But you know what? Our fans look forward to that game too, and I hope our fans come early, come loud, take up as many seats as we can before their students arrive, because that's huge. And I think our players have risen to the occasion. They understand that when you go on the road, you got to put 40 minutes together. It's going to be a highly contested game. Tiffin's going to want to play fast. They're going to want to press. They're going to want to run. They're going to want us to shoot fast. We have to be willing to, or not be willing, I think we have to have great game management by all of our players. We can't fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm reasonably open, I think I'm going to take this one, because those are the shots they want us to take. If we manage the game well, we will get great shots. We will break down their defense. We can get offensive rebounds, and we can wear them down from guarding us. And I think that's got to be a real key in this game.
Well, and I think this is a huge challenge for this young team to be disciplined, because as you said, you look at some of those scores from Tiffin, they're gonna get down and shoot early, and they're gonna try to get the pace going. And sometimes, as a young player, you can fall into the trap, as you said, of shooting early. And next thing you know, if you miss a wide open three down at one end, and it turns into a dunk or a 3-point opportunity at the one end, and all of a sudden now we're talking about a 6 to 8-0 run.
Yeah, and those are things that we have to. We'll spend the next couple days training our guys on tempo of the game and how we want to play, when we want to attack them, and how we want to attack them. We're going to need a lot of depth in a game like this, but we have a lot of depth. And, so this will be an interesting cat and mouse game, but I think it's their style of play that will be very interesting to see how we handle that.
Of course, when a team shoots quick, defensive rebounding is big, and we've been a good rebounding team. That's going to be key today, or key on Thursday, and also keeping Austin Adams out of the lane. Now, I noticed at the start of the season he was maybe struggling a little bit, but the last couple games he's put up some big numbers.
He has. We know he's a very good player, and maybe their system has taken him some time. And but I know his last game out, he had 29 points. He's a very athletic kid. He's a senior. Guys you would expect to be stepping up their senior year. You play with more of a sense of an urgency, and maybe that's what he's doing. He's kind of put all things aside and kind of coming into his own here. Hopefully we can at least stymie that momentarily on Thursday night.
So Thursday at Tiffin, then Saturday go to Cedarville, and Cedarville is always a tough place to play. Of course, we've been playing them for years, and last year we had one of our better teams we've ever had here. One is certainly probably top 10 team ever at the University of Findlay last season, and we went down. They took us to overtime and probably should have beat us, to be quite honest, and we came away with a win. But they are always good at home.
Well, we and you had a chance to watch them in Missouri, and they return a kind of a nice blend of guys that played last year. In fact, a lot of guys that had to take on big roles last year after Patrick Bain went down, and then some nice young players that have had a big impact on their team, including their point guard Brandon Mogmer, and so we've got to play them there. This is another team that years ago, the Findlay-Cedarville rivalry was maybe as big a rival for Findlay, and Cedarville felt the same way for many, many years. In fact, I talked to some of our older alums, and believe it or not, Cedarville is one of the programs they all ask me about. And, so it's always been a very healthy rivalry. They playing at home are always good. We're playing them a little bit earlier this year, so I anticipate that they will have a good crowd. It'll be another tough environment. We got to go on the road, and as you mentioned, last year was no picnic. We did not play very well. Somehow we found a way, which is what good teams do. I hope we play a lot better this year.
All right, Coach, best of luck as we start league play this week.
All right, thank you.
That's head coach Charlie Ernst. That's going to wrap up Center Court. Invite Oiler fans to get over there to Tiffin. 7:30 start at Tiffin on Thursday. The women play beforehand, so you want to get there about 5 o'clock. Grab as many seats as possible. Should be a great game on Thursday, and then make the short trip down to Cedarville, about an hour and a half trip down the state, down 68 or down 75, just a little east of Dayton, and a great opportunity to see the Oilers 2 times this week. So for Charlie Ernst, I'm Jason Granger. You've been listening to Center Court.
Tommy, left side, little stutter step, driving the lane, scoop the hoop, left hand, got it again.
Thank you for listening to Center Court with Charlie
Once
Ernst.
the screen, he'll go the other way, find A.O. Aaron from downtown, got it. The Moose is loose.
Join us every Tuesday night during the season for your connection to Coach Ernst and Oiler men's basketball.
Oilers win it, and what a game here in Troy, and a tremendous victory for the Orange and Black.
This is your home for Oiler men's basketball, 88.3 WLFC.